The frustration that Jimmy displayed. Cornpop. I'm not going to read the rest of it. About me, that's
Behold, pale horse. I'd pay $5 to see Jimmy Dore body slam a disagreeable guest. Just saying. LOL.
What the fuck?
Guess what? News. This is the former CDC director, Redfield. Listen to what Bobby Kennedy has to say about him and what happened. They had a meeting, and watch what happens.
I'll tell you something that interesting that happened today, and I actually was going to mention this to Rand. So it was an extraordinary event to me, but Robert Redfield, who I really go after in my Fauci book, kind of a hammer and tongs, wrote an editorial in Newsweek magazine today saying that he was endorsing President Trump because President Trump was going to restore American health, and that President Trump, he said, a lot of people might surprise me to see this, but hear me say this, but he has chosen exactly the only person who can do this, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. This was breathtaking to me because this is the guy who's the head of the CDC that I've been criticizing for years. And then this afternoon, he came over and had lunch with me. It's the first time I've ever met him. And the first thing he said to me is, "You got everything right."
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
So that's Robert Redfield, former CDC director. And I think he knows it's all coming down. That if Trump gets reelected, they're going to have a vaccine panel. They're going to have a COVID panel. They're going to have, it's going to be like the Nuremberg thing. And he's just getting ahead of the brick wall by subtly now telling RFK, and you were right about everything. And he wrote this article. It's in Newsweek yesterday. Talk of healthcare reform often centers on cost to consumers. So he talks about, for instance, obesity in American children has increased dramatically since John F. Kennedy's presidency, from around 4% in the 60s to 20% in 2024. I thought it was almost half. What percent of American children are obese? 1 in 5 children. 1 in 5 children are obese. I think it's higher than that. I think it's got to be higher than that. Anyway, so here's what I said. CDC director admits RFK got everything right, proving that Americans are the most propagandized people in the entire world and don't know it. You've been told and taught to hate RFK because he's a quack, just like you were told and taught that ivermectin is dangerous, horse dewormer. You were told and taught those things because RFK threatened Big Pharma and they have a stranglehold on the media, so Americans believe the lie. Americans will never wake from their propaganda coma, which is why the NATO-provoked Ukraine war will never end, and we will continue to fund it while Americans live under bridges and go bankrupt when they get sick. I think he must be watching YouTube videos about the Nuremberg trials. That's why he's all of a sudden, he wrote an article in Newsweek all about how RFK's plan and Trump's plan to make America healthy again is the right thing. And but you know, World War II was sexy. It was sexy to be fascist right up until about 1946. And now it's like Redfield wants to just be like one of those guys. I was just a humble furniture salesman. I was just following orders. That's what it sounds like. Eric says that's a stunning turnaround. RFK has gone after this guy relentlessly the past few years. For this man to turn around and admit he was wrong and apologize to RFK is wild.
Indeed.
Remember this? Elon says, my pronouns are prosecute Fauci.
Ha!
Oh, Elon, you quadrupole He's a quadrupolar. Which side are you going to be on today? 1 minute you're doing the right thing. The next moment you're trying to turn us all into robots. I want to trust Elon Musk. We actually do, but you got to pick a side. You're probably powerful enough to take on all the elites at once. Anyway. So it just goes to show you should be careful about the company you keep, and even more careful about the company that keeps you. So that's a big deal. I would say that's a big deal. Do you think that's going to be the headline on CNN today? You think that's going to be breaking news? Former CDC director says RFK Jr. is right about everything. Do you think that's going to happen? Do you think the headline in New York Times is going to be, hey, turns out RFK Jr. was right about everything. So here's what he says. Kennedy is right. All three of the principal health agencies suffer from agency capture. Isn't it weird that RFK is the only one talking about that? Why aren't the Democrats talking about that? A large portion of the FDA's budget is provided by pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you know how large? At least half, 70% of the part that deals with drugs. The NIH is cozy with biomedical and pharmaceutical companies, and its scientists are allowed to collect royalties on drugs NIH licenses to pharma. And as a former director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, I know the agency can be influenced by special interest. It can be, you think? You think the CDC can be influenced? Really? How ballsy of you. But it doesn't stop in health agencies. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is a captive of industry, too. Created to help the family farmer and to ensure a wholesome food supply, today the agency often favors large corporations over the interests of small farmers and the public's health. Chagrin. No kidding? Why now are you saying all this? Why now? Why a couple of weeks before an election are you saying this now? Why weren't you saying this when you were the head of the CDC? Where's the book you wrote about this? Oh, you didn't do any of that? Isn't that interesting? To cure our children, we must reevaluate our food choices and the underlying practices of the agricultural sector. We must prioritize wholesome and nutritious food. What, it's weird that when you were head of the CDC, you didn't say any of this. Is this all news to you? It took a non-doctor, Bobby Kennedy, to bring it up? If we do not discover the depth of our corporate capture problem and fix it, we cannot truly address chronic disease in this country. The primary... Really? So the head of the chronic disease guy, the agency, is now figuring this out. How old does that guy look?
70.
The primary role of these vital agencies is to focus on public good, not corporate interests or personal profit, and most of the public servants working there are eager to do good. It's weird that they don't, though. Critics say our public health system has failed chronic disease patients, especially children. I must agree, and I'm even more frustrated that it's gotten steadily worse during my career. Really? As parents and grandparents, doctors, and good citizens, we must finally do something to end this chronic disease epidemic, which I did nothing about until now that Bobby Kennedy is talking about it. President Trump has pledged, if elected, to establish a panel of top experts working with Kennedy to investigate what is causing the decades-long increase in chronic health problems and childhood diseases. He specifically mentioned autoimmune disorders, autism, obesity, and infertility. In 2019, when we took steps to take on the chronic disease epidemic, we also... Oh, really? You did? In 2019, he said he took on steps to take on chronic disease. Really? First time hearing of it. We also focused on creating earlier interventions in diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, kidney disease, and more. Really, I'd love to know what those were. In response, Kennedy pledged that within 2 years, we will watch the chronic disease burden lift dramatically if he's given the tools he needs to make change. I believe him, and I think President Trump will empower him. I support their noble effort to heal our children. The needless suffering and death can be ended by a Kennedy Commission on Childhood Chronic Diseases. And the vast burden of chronic disease that now demoralizes and bankrupts our nation can disappear. The key is to see the possible and lead our nation to act. Wow. So this guy, Dr. Robert Redfield, former CDC director, is an American virologist at the forefront of AIDS research. He served as director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention from 2018 to 2021, 3 years. Okay. I don't see anybody reprinting that article. I don't see anybody covering it. I doubt they will. I doubt anybody will cover this. But we covered it. Over to Steph.
So some people are mentioning, Jimmy, that former CDC director testified at House hearings on COVID-19 in 2023.
I saw those. We covered that.
All right. So people just wanted to
That's where he said that the virus definitely was manufactured in the lab because of the Cleveland site or whatever that's called.
Yes. All right. So they just wanted you to be reminded of that. Thank you, everybody on the chats. All right. Here we go. Also, Outscone, you wanted to know, what are your thoughts on states taking control of public education? I think they pretty much do have control.
I think it's better. I think we should get rid of...
back to Jimmy.
I think we should get rid of the... So people are talking about getting rid of the Department of Education. I think more control of education at the state level. The closer to the actual educating... I know Barack Obama's Department of Education was horrible. He put a guy in charge of education. You know how many days that guy had spent in the classroom? 0. The guy that Barack Obama put in charge to remake education in America, 0 days in the classroom. And then he went to implement corporate ideas, race to the top. Remember that? That was from Barack Obama's genius at the Department of Education. And so what they did was they tested. So they did all the testing, and then the schools with the highest tests, they got more money. And the schools with the lowest tests, they got less money. Well, you're supposed to do the exact opposite, you fucking moron. So all you're doing is you're encouraging teachers to cheat.
And the test makers made a lot of money.
And the test makers made a lot of money. So what about the kids who are doing poorly? You don't give them extra help? They're the ones who need it.
And by the way, they're expecting schools to solve the problems that society has created.
It's all about expecting a school to solve the problems of their community. If there's no jobs in their community, if there's single parents, there's fatherless homes, if there's crime, if there's the school can't fix all that.
How's the school supposed to teach a kid who's hungry?
That's right.
How's the school supposed to teach a kid who's living in a car to go to school?
Right.
So, for me, public education in the best way is great. That you're going to help a kid and raise their level of critical thinking and intellect. What a wonderful idea. But let me tell you, after 25 years in the classroom, it was about 38 to 42 kids a class period. And really what they wanted us to do is teach them how to conform, sit down, and follow directions. Back to Jimmy.
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletter. Just visit
Isn't it swell? The memes make themselves. They found a rabbi hole, tunnels and all. There's Jews in the walls. Isn't it bliss? The rabbinical grace soiling the mattresses. Well, let me tell you. If I were Rabbi Shmuley and diddle 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 digga digga diddle diddle dum, all day long I'd diddle little bums. If I were a Shmuley man, I'd peddle all my dildos, dreidel dildos, selling dildos with my daughter and her mum. If I were a Jewish Shmuley man, I'd be digging with a dildo in my bum. I'd wear a grotesque nose and go grab some goyim right on the nipple with a pinch. A Shabbos lap dance brace for the youngest mensch.
At this time, more than any other time, you know, revolution is necessary. It is necessary. Not only based on what has happened with the MOVE organization, you know, the babies that have been murdered, you know, MOVE adults that have been murdered, bombs being dropped on us, but past that to what is happening with all black people, so-called minority people, you know, money poor people. You know, this government, as has been said earlier, has waged war on us. But you know, something about us, particularly here in America, we don't really understand that. You know, we don't really know what war is. You know, for black people, for poor people, that people see as good, that they wasn't forced to do, that they didn't do to try to keep black people appeased, you know, and calm down so that black people wouldn't riot. A prison situation is a crystallized example of that. You can make phone calls in prison. They have movies in prison, but they don't have those things because they just want to be nice to prisoners. They have those things because they know damn well if they don't have, you know, people being able to contact their family, if they don't have, you know, facilities for people to sit there and watch movies, people are going to be frustrated, upset, and they're going to direct that frustration at them prison administrators, and they're going to have riots on their hands. You know, they're going to have people in them prisons turning them prisons out. That's why they have movies. That's why they have access to phones the way they do. And a stop to it when we don't like it, or encouraging it when it's something that's in our interest. You know, we have to call the shots. The people have to take the reins of this system and start dictating, you know, what we need, what needs to be done. And, you know, taking the initiative to do it ourselves. We can't rely on this system. I mean, you know, don't people see what's happening? Every single confrontation that MOVE people have been involved in, every single issue, you know, oppression, economic issues, every single issue facing our people, you know, is something that can be dealt with very, very simply. All people got to do is make their wishes known. All people have to do is stand up and say, listen, we're not accepting that. Unity is the key. Unity is the key to revolution. Revolution ain't nothing to be afraid of. It ain't nothing to shy away from. Revolution, contrary to what officials, you know, this system and those backing the officials running this system, you know, want people to believe that revolution means violence, you know, means blood in the street. I'm saying it can get to that point, but it don't have to be violent. You know, when people come together and take a strong stand on an issue, this government don't have no choice but to listen. Where you think they get their authority from? They don't have no power, but they do have authority to do certain things. Where you think they get it from? They get it from us, from the people. You know, they get it from us accepting the things that they do to be done to stop it. Then you have some people who want to then turn around and say, yeah, well, you know, it's the best we have, and want to make excuses. The time for excuses is over. It's over. You know, every man, woman, and child has to be involved in this revolution. Not only has to be, but is, whether you want to be or not. I mean, our babies gave their lives for this revolution on May 13th. You know, men, women, and children were murdered. And not just move babies, you know. What about all of the young men, women, you know, children 8, 9 years old shot down on the street by cops, you know, by drug pushers? I mean, you know, where do you think that mentality comes from? It comes from this system, from the mentality of this system of getting over, you know, making a quick buck, you know. I'm saying that's where that needs to be done to stop it. Then, you know, what I want people to really, really understand is that it's past time. It is past time for poor people, black people, you know, to realize that this system has failed you. It has failed you. You can't get nothing from it. And what people got to do is withdraw our support from it and start doing for ourselves. That's what we got to do. You know, how long are people going to sit back and beg, you know, this government to do what's right when for hundreds of years all you've gotten is a slap in the face? All you've gotten is this government kicking your ass. That's all. That's all black people have ever gotten from this government.